Super duper honesty time. Historically, I am known for creating what I call fairy tales out of absolutely everything. Fantastical, wonderful stories of possible futures with people, particularly romantic partnerships. But I probably do it a little bit with everything, like jobs or job opportunities. If I have an idea for like video content, I'll obsessively build it up into this wild, outrageous thing in my imagination that becomes so absurd that the process to create it is incomprehensible. I imagine things that are just ridiculous and they become impractical very quickly, within minutes. This is how full on it can be. Like within minutes, I can imagine up the most detailed and splendid, like just beautiful, magical fantasy story about how this present moment could evolve. And it doesn't serve me. But what has happened is I've become mindful of it, and I've been pulling myself up when I catch myself creating fairy tales. That's what I'm calling it. Like that's what I call it when I describe it to my friends. Like my friends know what I'm talking about if I go like I'm creating another fairy tale. That also probably reveals a little bit more how prevalent this issue is for me. So I've become mindful of it, and I'm pulling myself up when I start to do it, and all that I'm doing is just like let go of all of the things that I just imagined and remember that I don't know anything about what happens next. Like I have my intention, I have what I would like to happen, but I don't need to imagine the entire staircase, just the next step kind of thing. Like I don't need to imagine every possible fork in the road moving forwards, like the multiverse of possibilities with this singular event that's taking place now. That's what I do, man. Whoa. I call it the Garden of Forking Paths. I may have even referenced it in a video journal at some point. You'd have to dig bloody deep to find it. It would have just been in passing or something. But yeah, the Garden of Forking Paths. And I call it that because of a very specific television show called Flash Forward, where everybody in the world blacks out for some uniform period of time and they all see the future, but they don't realize that they saw the future until like they start to talk about the experiences they had while the blackout took place, and they're like, oh yeah, and they start to realize it's like this wasn't just dreams that we were having, like it was the same date in everybody's flash forwards is what they're calling them. Anyway, there's a dude on that show that I really related to in the moment in time that I watched it, and he's like this crazy professor type dude, and he's engineered like thousands of these flash forwards on himself. So he's seen like every fork in the road, like if I make this choice and then I go that way, then this happens. And he actually maps it out on this massive blackboard, and he has it all set out in dominoes because it's like a dramatic television show as well, and he knocks over one domino and it like just all of the possibilities like domino like through this like artwork that he's created. And in that moment in time I was just like, that's so fucking cool. But obviously it was because it was reflecting something inside of me as well. Like I like to imagine like I said, like the multiverse of every like possible like fork in the road. But I've always had that fascination, and the first movie that like really triggered it off was Butterfly Effect, and like most people would know that movie, where he kind of like goes back in time and he changes one tiny thing, and then he comes back and the future's totally different, and it becomes quite distressing. It's like a really traumatic movie to watch. But so there's a few like time travel-y kind of things, and that's why obviously I enjoy the kinds of things that I'm into in present day as well. There's a lot of healthy things that have come from it, but this main thing where I just, like, from the present moment, I'm imagining every single possible fork in the road, every possible reality that could take place as a result of every decision that I might ever make with this moment, you know? Like, I don't need to do that. I can just be here and decide, do we want to go get some food or do we want to go for a swim? Like, we can just figure that out, and that can be enough. I don't need to get lost in my imagination, because I'm probably losing a lot of time as well when I'm doing it, because like I might be hanging out with somebody that I think is really awesome, like especially with the romantic side of things, and I must just be zoned out heaps, like just doing that like internal time travel experiment, just seeing like all the possible futures that could emerge, and you know, whether, and then I'm like reacting to the possible futures that I'm imagining, like so it just becomes like this inception type event where, yeah, I think that's why it grows into this garden of forking paths like I described. Like it's like every branch in the tree then creates more branches, because I'm reacting like, if that happens then this could happen, then this. It's pretty wild. Anybody relate to this? Probably. Anybody who it sounds like anxiety actually, like anxiety would be pretty like similar in its mechanisms, I reckon. And maybe it was born from some kind of anxiety or something. Haven't really connected the dots as to what the cause and the effect of this fairy tale thing that I got going on is. It's just fascinating to me, and that's probably why I haven't let it go yet either, because it is interesting. And I like like I said, I really identified with those characters in those shows, like where they can see all the possible futures. Like Doctor Strange is my favorite superhero. I don't think I've ever publicly talked about, like, you know, pop culture that much, because I think pop culture is a massive distraction from what we need to be really looking at, and there's heaps of programming going on and like all kinds of things behind the scenes that I don't even want to begin to go into in a video journal. But yeah, I really responded to Doctor Strange, like when I saw that as well. And that was like, well, that just the first movie, well before it even got to the Multiverse of Madness. I don't even follow the following movies. Like I've watched such a tiny fraction of all of the Marvel stuff and DC stuff, like any pop culture stuff. It takes me ages to get around to even looking at like one single unit of the stuff. But yeah, I do respond when I do watch these kinds of things, and I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. I identify with that character, and it awakens something in me or triggers something off maybe. And yeah, time travel's been my thing forever. Like, I've always pondered and always done little experiments and things. And, There's even, like, to get really weird about it, like these when I'm looking into the future and I can see all these possibilities and the way that it could play out and stuff, like maybe it's just because of the degree to which I do it. Like, of course I'm going to imagine up every possibility, and that's why the things that I imagine take place. But like, I reckon there's like a degree of accuracy to it, but it could just be from practice, like from constantly observing the present moment and then extrapolating out like what I imagine might happen, and you start to see patterns, and then like subconsciously all these connections are being made in your awareness, and then before you know it, like you can accurately predict where you're going to end up, or maybe there's something metaphysical to it, who knows. But it's, yeah, that's probably another thing that's feeding it, is because I feel like I actually have some kind of weird like magical superpower ability to see the future as well. But even in that, there's like a whole fairy tale. Like, I'm doing it right now. I'm doing the thing that I'm saying that I do. So this is fucking interesting, because it's like I'm kind of like in it and experiencing it while I'm describing it. But there's like this whole piece to it where I would see potential outcomes when I was doing this imaginative exercise, and then I would react to them, and I would actually try to change the future. And almost every time that I would ever do that, the behavior that I changed, or the decisions that I made in response to the future that I didn't want to create, were the cause of what actually happened. So like, you know, I might be insecure in a relationship and think, oh, like my girlfriend's gonna cheat on me with that person, and then like, you know, you react to it and you like, that's just such a, you can't even say that's like that weird, like it's totally to be expected, but you react to it and you try to prevent it, but then insecurity drives your partner away and then they end up going to the other person, like things like that. So I had this whole thing with like, don't mess with the future, man. Just like try to be present. Try to stop doing it. Try to stop imagining. Like just try to be here now. And I've had my intention has frequently been, when I start my days a lot lately, let go and learn. And I've said it to a bunch of people too, so they know. And that's in response to this, like, don't, like, start with a completely blank slate. Like, don't let your imagination run wild. Don't even let your past experiences that you've already had let you think that you know anything. Like, don't try to build this image of what's possible or what's available. Let's start each day with a blank slate and find out. It's challenging for me, to be honest. Like, I do like patterns and predicting and imagining. Interestingly enough as well, I was terrified to document my thoughts and feelings around this. I was thinking that I would get 1 minute into it and I would just feel very uncomfortable, but I'm actually finding it interesting. And I'm not feeling like I don't want to share this. I think that other people will actually quite be entertained by this if they're not getting any kind of like value or insight from it. At least it's like interesting and something like a little bit out of the ordinary. Like I don't talk about stuff like this very often, and I don't know many other people who have discussions like this very often. And I know that like that's one of the key things that everybody keeps saying, like, wish I had mates around me who had these kinds of discussions, and you know, let's have them. The coughs. So yeah, it's a huge amount of deliberate effort just for me to stay present and not do this imaginative exercise. But I've done it really well in a few areas of my life in the last 8 months. The last 8 months I've been single and dating. Like nothing significant, like nothing serious. No one's moving in together, like, you know, far from that. Like just small experiences where like dating, you know, like you go on the date and the date happens and then you finish the date and it's done, and then you're like back to your own reality. And that's like so new to me. Like I've joked about myself in the past being like a serial monogamist, like just constantly being in a relationship, never been single for very long because I just didn't know how to be by myself. And I've gone on this huge journey of really figuring out how to be by myself, and it was amplified times a million when I was driving around Australia in the ute, and it was really uncomfortable and I hated it, and I just wanted somebody to give me a cuddle the entire time and just like go back to a codependent, like familiar relationship where you know what's going on every day, and you know where your good feels come from, even if it's the relationship is full with like bumps and discomfort and negative things. Like it doesn't matter, I just want my familiarity and comfort. Yeah, that's where I was at. So I've like kind of weaned myself off that, and it's taken ages, and I've had a few like relapses, I guess you could say. Like that would sound terrible for the people that were in those partnerships with me at those times, but it is kind of the way that I look at it. Like I was like kind of relapsing back into just that needy, codependent vibe, just wanting somebody to be here, give me a cuddle and just be like warm and safe and feel good. So yeah, 8 months. I gave myself a year, and it felt like time was going so slow and nothing was changing, nothing was happening the entire time. And now I'm like, it's been 8 months, holy shit. Like 4 months to go, and I actually need to take some action, because this is just like a vacation. It's like a personal development vacation. Like I've sort of gone dark on most socials. Like this is me not sharing much, so I don't know what's going to happen when I come back, like actually wanting to start to produce content again and share a lot. I've just been, trying to keep a low profile, really trying to actually hide what's going on. Not in like a secretive, like deceptive way, but just like I've really been working on my health and fitness a lot, and I'm like, I'm excited to like reveal like the progress of a year's worth of just like knuckling down, working on your health and fitness, working on your finances, working on your career, and like doing all the invisible stuff that people do, but like I have neglected a lot because I've been so obsessed with the visible stuff. Like when I was doing the whole YouTube thing and meeting YouTubers from all over the world and trying to like create that whole facade, and then like whatever else I've done, like I don't think I've ever really, my entire life, because I started like had a serious like long-term relationship from like 15, so I've always been in a relationship, and that's been what my whole life's about, is like making that relationship awesome. So 8 months straight is the longest I've ever just like been in like build yourself mode with, like I've only been focusing on like my career, my health and fitness, my personal growth. So it's probably helping with the whole fairy tales thing, because part of the fairy tales thing is like escapism, and now I'm no longer escaping, and I'm here, and I'm doing all the stuff that's uncomfortable and painful. Being alone no longer feels lonely. Like I'm happy to be alone. In fact, the pendulum has gone all the way to the other end. Like I got very isolated and I actually didn't want to be around anybody. So now I'm just like coming back to balance and like starting to socialize again, starting to let people back in. Saw my best mate the other day, and we were just like, we hadn't seen each other since March, and we saw each other in March for like 5 minutes, man. And before that, it was probably almost a year. So that's how isolated I've actually been. And there's been a few of you, or a few mates and stuff, that have been like a bit upset about how I've ghosted. But like I said, I've gone dark on socials. Like this is my ghost period. Like I have ghosted everyone. And it doesn't seem that way when you come and you look at the video journals, or you see that I posted a little write-up on Instagram or something. But that's just me popping in, like, this is my thoughts, feelings, like this is me just expressing something, and then like I'm a ghost again. So I'm coming out of it. November's the end of the year that I've given myself, and then the plan is to move into a house, like a full house, and start to utilize like an entire house as a space to conduct the next steps of my master plan. Yes. And I'm terrified because the house is going to be expensive, but I've been going over it and over and over again in my head. Like, it doesn't matter, because the potential of what I can create and earn when I have that much space to myself is going to be like exponentially growing, whereas the space that I'm in now, I can only really like, I can't do much with it. So I've outgrown this space, I've said it before, and now it's time. Or in November it's time. I was going to try to fast track it. I was actually looking at houses about a month ago, just like sort of had a gutful of all my roommates and stuff, but then it was too hard to break the lease, so I just confronted my roommates about all the noise and drugs, and it's changed now, like the whole vibe of not only my unit but like the whole complex is starting to change, because I've brought attention to like some of the things that shouldn't have been happening. And yeah, we've been cleaning house, changing the whole culture of the place, so maybe I can leave it a little bit better than when I arrived. But yeah, I'm not isolating myself anymore, even with the family stuff. Like, being isolated from my family and had a lot of conflict and shit, and being angry and resentful and all that stuff, I'm starting to realize like I gotta heal that too. Like, I'll get around to it. I'm gonna go connect with everybody and make it all better. It's just, that's what this year is all about. It's about like, stop with the fairy tale bullshit and get fucking real. Find out who you really want to be and become it. And then once you got that down, let's see what really happens. We don't need a fairy tale. Reality's going to be better. If you get anything out of these videos, please pass them on to anybody else you know who may benefit. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the like button for me. It goes a long way, I believe. I think it changes everything. And check out kylives.com if you ever feel inclined. It's got some cool stuff there. I don't know who or why. It's available. What's there is available, and maybe you're like, I'm gonna look, and then I'm so good at the call to action outros, aren't I?